What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to Connected by Creatures tonight. Again, I apologize. Zach is on an airplane right now trying to get to Schaumburg to hang out with some of you. So we're not going to have Zach with us tonight, but we do have the man, Shane Kelley from Small Town Exotics. Thank you for coming in, Shane.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me, man. I'm happy to be here. And too bad Zach is slacking. I mean, whatever, Zach. No, but hopefully Zach's traveling safe and having a good time. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. And just right off the bat, I want to tell everybody how much I appreciate Shane coming in. I talked to Shane late in the week. We had some other arrangements for other guests that wound up having to cancel due to certain issues that they have going on. But I talked to Shane. Shane had just got home from being out on the road and doing his thing, and for him to come in, it means everything to me and Zach. And Zach's not here to say that, but I trust me, he feels the same way I do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm happy to help out. And I mean, I'm not going to say who the guest was, but I mean, I'm happy to be the understudy for a guy like that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, if I'm the fill-in for him, I'm great with that, you know?
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he will be here. Man, just right off the bat, jumping into things, basically ever since the move and everything that's went on with that, how's everything been going for you since moving? And that's a lot to deal with, man. Like, that's a lot of stuff. I just dealt with moving not too long ago, and when you have as many animals as you do and moving your family, that's a lot.
Yeah. It was well, we ended up moving twice in 2 months. New job and all the animals involved and all that. So it was a rough couple months, man. And then my new job's kind of demanding too. There's some time where I'm away from home and stuff too. So it's just like kind of readjusting and juggling how to balance everything. But now that we're in like a house that we actually own, it should be a little bit settled down, So yeah, it's like just a quick story. I mean, like we moved out from California to Tennessee into a rental, and then like within 2 months we put an offer in the house and we're moving again. So it was like move to a move. It was hectic. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I remember when you moved too. I mean, it's just like a long distance move with animals and everything. So it's a lot, man.
Yeah, and doing the type of work that I've done for so long, and Shane, you've done the same stuff. I've like we've been kind of in the same field, and different operations with the same type of field, and it's funny because that every day you're going to work in that field, you're working yourself out of a job, but at the same time, most of the work that I've done's been kind of similar areas. So even though I worked in, different projects, they were all within an hour or so from a central location. So we lived in that one spot for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And then, we've always had our house back home. And when we came, like, we had acquired a larger collection than I realized, when we were moving all the animals. And like you said, bringing this many reptiles, because you're trying to monitor temperatures, you're trying to do all this stuff. It's definitely a task, and it's daunting when you finally start loading shit up and realizing, oh man, I got a lot of stuff that I'm responsible for in this move.
Yeah, and I mean, thankfully everything on my end made it healthy, and nothing got away, nothing got out, and like all them things, like you think that stuff didn't really cross my mind until people asked me like, oh, well, nothing got out. And I was like, oh, that really did. I mean, I secured everything. So that wasn't in my plan for anything to get out. But yeah, I mean, everything's healthy. And a cool little thing was, since I've started breeding, the initial move out here to Knoxville, that was the one time that I haven't had eggs in the incubator, but all the way up until that point, and then ever since I got here, I've had eggs. It was just that one little window. It worked out perfect for the timing, for the move and everything. No eggs. It was just animals. So that part was cool.
Uh, I'm gonna take this question. So Jamie's asking, how's the new snake room working out for you, Shane? You got it all dialed in the way you want it already.
Well, I mean, it's operational. I don't think it's ever really done. Like I need lighting. I need to do some similar lighting like I had in the California place. Some of those those retro can LEDs. I love those things, man. They're cheap and efficient. And there's a bunch of little things, but for the most part, it's working out great. Uh, Temperatures are holding. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's nice to just like not be in like somebody else's house. That's how I felt when I was in the rental. Like I couldn't change nothing, but whatever.
Brian Cusco just popped in and said California.
Yeah, I mean, California was a great place for 40 something years while I was there, but believe me, Cusco, you would love it in Tennessee, man. Like I stopped and go look at my stories, Cusco, from this morning on my way to work, man. I pulled over, got walked out on this bridge, took a picture of the sunrise and stuff. Man, it's beautiful here.
I've been trying to get Brian to come over here to Arkansas and make this happen. And you're right next door now. It's funny, guys. So I sent Shane a message yesterday because he had posted that on his story that he was in West Memphis, Arkansas. I was like, dude, you're like an hour from me. I wish I would have known. I would have swung over and met you in person because I haven't met Shane in person yet. So anybody that you're Californias and then your East Coast guy, come to the South Central. It's beautiful here. The weather's great. Like you guys should be here. Stop talking about California.
Yeah. Hey, in Arkansas, that was actually one of the places we were toying around with moving to as well. So it's beautiful in Arkansas. I love it there too.
Yeah, man, we're definitely gonna have to get together. We're way too close to not get together. I'm gonna take another question from Nathan. Nathan Katz. He said, "Any business advice for people in their first year of breeding and selling?"
Yeah, man, get help when you're IDing. That was all I can speak from is my first year of experience. It was like I reached out for plenty of help IDing stuff, double and triple check that stuff, and sexing the snakes, and then selling though was I don't know. I just open and honest, and yeah, man, I don't know. Just develop a relationship with everyone, and just it's just being open and honest. Like if I wasn't sure about something, I communicated that to anyone that was buying a snake or any of that stuff. I just transparency. That would be the best advice, man. Transparency.
And the one thing that I think everybody should follow you for, and one thing that I think anybody should ask you advice for, and something that I've personally wanted to talk. Man, you came in and crushed Instagram and crushed the social media thing. Do you attribute that to just hard work, just like constantly putting work into it, or did you have a methodology?
There's a little bit of methodology, but it was like 99.9% all elbow grease, man. Just hard work, consistency, staying consistent. I still haven't figured out any secret magical hashtags. Like I don't even think those things exist. I have noticed I do see some better results depending on like time that I post. But when I post in the morning, that's usually like an hour before I should be leaving for work. So whatever that time is when I'm posting. And so that kind of dictates my timing. And yeah, man. I mean, I take a lot of pride in the fact that like I didn't do like giveaways or none of that shit. I just stayed consistent and just post every day and interact with everyone. And yeah, that's the best advice. Just stay consistent and interact with everyone.
I mean, like I said, I think it's really inspiring to a lot of people. I mean, it's definitely inspiring to me to watch. I mean, your rise in just Instagram alone was meteoric. Like, I mean, you flew up through numbers, but you were everywhere. Like anytime, I went on anybody's lives or any of that stuff, like I always saw you in communicating with people and interacting with people and talking to people. And, you and I did sticker swapping a long time, way a long time ago. And
it might have been my first batch of stickers too, honestly, when we first swapped.
yeah, it was a while ago. And
Yeah.
like, I just started watching, everything that you were doing, and it was great to see. And then, you did the stuff with Chris Eaton and the 15 minutes of lame, and that whole thing was just great. Like, you guys bouncing back and forth off of each other, and that was awesome.
Yeah, that was honestly one of the highlights of my whole deal, because that's Snakes and the Fat Man and Bullshit. Those two podcasts were what I stumbled onto before I ever found YouTube or anything. So that's kind of like, everyone talks about like bar check and like snake bites is like they're kind of like their starting point. Well, mine was Snakes and the Fat Man and Bullshit. That was like my starting point. So to get to be on that show was like, everything came full circle to me. So that was like a sentimental one to me, honestly.
I talk about it all the time. Like, I haven't been doing social media for very long, just basically this past year. But I've been into reptiles forever, since I was a kid. So like, I definitely watched like the old snake bite stuff when it first came out. But being from the South and going to reptile shows around here, like, the big guy, the big dude that was at all the reptile shows was Sean Bradley. So, like, you talking about bullshit and all that, like, Sean was, if you had questions about something, you didn't know what was going on, like, Sean was the dude that was there that was schooling everybody up on everything. Actually, like, my racks, I got when Sean started getting out of ball pythons and going into his coral and everything. Like, that's who I got my racks from, was old racks that Sean had. Like, some of my female breeders are some of Sean's old females. And like, one thing I can say about any animal I've ever got from Sean, like, they have no problems eating. Like, Sean's shit eats, man.
Yeah, I got a couple breeder females from him when he was getting out too. And it's funny because I was just re-listening to bullshit when I was making my little galavan across the United States, over the past week and a half. Because when I first listened to it, I was like, man, I'm going to have to come back and re-listen to some of these once I know a little bit more what's going on. And sure enough, I caught on to a bunch of stuff that I never caught before, because I didn't even know what they were talking about in the beginning. That was like my entry into it. So it's cool to get a second round in it and just hear the jibber jabber too. It's a good show, man.
Yeah, Sean's definitely to me, I think he's funny. Like, I think Sean's hilarious. Like, I like his tenacity, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
But no, man. So obviously you got the ball python thing going on. Real heavy into ball pythons and doing awesome stuff. You're working hognose snakes, and that's like, we talked about that just a little while ago. You and I messaged you and said, whenever you get some available, let me know, because I'm interested in them. How's your hognose collection going? And are you diving deeper into that, or?
Well, I mean, I would like to dive really deep into it, but I'm kind of waiting to hatch these first few clutches out and just see how it goes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to, because something I did learn is I had 2 clutches, and between the 2 clutches, that was 28 eggs, man. And so, I mean, like, that's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. And, so I just kind of want to make sure that between me and my wife, we can handle those. I mean, because I'm sure you've seen them. I mean, they're tiny when they're born. You got those little day-old pinkies, and supposedly, some of them are hard to get started on food. So I just want to go through the whole motions with them, make sure it's something we can handle. I'm sure we can, but, yeah, I'm pretty excited. So I've probably been in here 3 times today looking at, because there's a hognose clutch that's due here in like a couple days. So I'm like, it's like the very first hognose clutch is going to be hatching here. I'm pretty happy, excited, so.
Yeah, I just think they're cool little snakes. Like, it's crazy that, I've been I've kept all shitloads of types of different species of snakes. I've never kept a hognose, but we actually have wild hognose here in Arkansas. So like I've played with them my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's always different when you have a domesticated lion, a captive bred lion, and you go outside and see a eastern hognose and go play with it, and it's all flared up at you, and then you keep fucking with it until it plays dead, and then you don't want to touch it because it stinks real bad because it's musking everywhere.
Yeah.
But like I those snakes just have so much character, like they have personalities that I think are hilarious.
And that's what I like about them too. And it's like every single, so I have 5 of them, 5 adults, and every single one of them has their own personality too. So like, I mean, just them as a species is funny and hilarious. And then each one individually has got its own little quirks. So it's pretty cool. I like them.
And then Jamie asked, how's the leopard gecko breeding going?
It's going good. So we have 3 babies right now. One baby out of the last clutch, and never hatched. So I kind of cut it open and looked at it, and it just like never fully formed. It was just kind of like an oval with legs. It never really got the head formed or whatever. So I don't know what happened with that. So I shared that with the boys, though, because that's pretty much my kids' project. But they're going ahead and they're investing into another breeder female leopard gecko, so then they'll have a 1.2 going, and so that'll be like their own little deal. So I'm trying to stay out of the way for that. And my wife really likes the leopard geckos. She comes in here and like talks to them, and like, does all that stuff. So
yeah, that's exactly how the leopard geckos got started over here too. It was one of those situations where like I had all my snakes and all that good stuff, and like none of the snakes were actually lanies, my daughters, and she thought she wanted to get into reptiles, and it started with one leopard gecko, and then we had 2 females, and then we got a male, and everything was good. She raised them up, she was doing really well with them, and then when it actually came time and she started breeding them, Katie kind of stepped in and took, helped her out. And they didn't like the brutality of leopard gecko breeding.
yeah.
And I mean, just knowing how lizards breed in general, like I knew what was coming. But when they were seeing how rough it gets, they didn't like breeding leopard geckos anymore. So all the leopard geckos that, some of them were, and I don't know shit about leopard gecko morphs. I'd be lying if I said I did. But some, investment quality animals that we had spent, some decent money on to breed, they turned back into pets real quick when, there was a time when, I literally had to pry a male's jaws open off of a female's arm because he had twisted her up and like dislocated her. So like, it gets brutal during that stuff. And that one's name changed to Ike Turner. And, they stopped loving him so much.
Yeah. We were kind of warned by a buddy of mine that breeds them. And so, I told my kids like, hey, this could get kind of brutal, how you're saying. But we paired them, and we all 3 sat there and watched, and like they got right to it, and it wasn't too bad. It didn't get as brutal as like the stories I'd heard and everything. So we got kind of lucky on that, honestly. But yeah, I had to share that information with the boys so they knew, and
yeah, and like I said, it's just nature. Like, if you talk to anybody that's bred, whether it's leopard geckos or blue tongue skinks or whatever type of, like, lizards can get pretty aggressive and that's just how it is. Like talking to people who breed monitors, like their backs will get ripped up from their claws, and it's just something that happens. So they're a little more okay with the ball pythons that just seem to lay on each other and then, do a little wiggling and their tails cross up.
Yeah. It's weird, man, because when you look at the hog noses, like they lock like a snake would and stuff, but it's hard to tell because they can lock when they're just like side by side. They don't do like a classic lock like a ball python would. Like they'll be all different angles and stuff. It's weird. You really have to like look to even make sure. Like half the time I just put them in and I know if they're doing like the little dance with each other, I just count it, man, because I'm just like, it's weird. I don't want to mess with them too much when they're breeding, but that's another cool thing about them because, you know, ball pythons, you just put them in and they can kind of, like you said, they kind of lay together and then they'll just do a little twist. But the hognose, man, they do like this little like herky-jerky dance with each other, and it's like a whole different, it's like a little ritual they go through. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and like that's the cool part of it. Like, you know, to me, I'm never had intentions from the beginning of being like a big breeder and making a lot of money off of breeding. Like that was never my, like, it's always been about loving the animals and watching, you know, and thinking it's cool. And then I was like, well, shit, I have a bunch of these things. Let's start breeding them. And, you know, and we'll always breed the ball pythons that we have. Like, you know, we don't plan on stopping that, but like, I don't plan on investing more, you know, big money into ball pythons because I want to do more of the educational stuff. And that's just what speaks to me, you know. But it was funny when we got our first clutch of ball python eggs. It was one of those things where, you know, so excited and so pumped up about doing it. And it was a simple pairing. It was like I think a normal to a pinstripe was the first one that we ever had. And but what I like watching, you know, people who are breeding other type animals, and now, you know, we're breeding the African house snakes too, and like those are I think that they could easily be the number one starter snake for people over corn snakes, over ball pythons. Like the African house snakes are rad. Like if you ever get a chance to, you know, mess with them, definitely, you know, even if you just get one just to check it out, like the house snakes are awesome.
I've heard good things about them, and I've heard other people say that they should be the starter snake too. I mean, yeah, I've never had a chance to mess with them. So
yeah, they're super hardy. They have great food responses. If you are interested in breeding them, like if you have a male and female that, you know, you just house together, you're gonna have to take them apart because you're gonna have eggs. Like, I mean, if you don't plan on having it, you're gonna get them anyway. Like those things, they don't mind breeding. But they're cool. Like it's almost like they're a mixture of a colubrid and a python, like a small little python, and they're just awesome snakes. And I mean, I love solid black snakes. Like I just have an affinity for solid, whether it's like Motley Golden Child retics or, you know, any of the indigos, your Eastern indigos, or I just love black snakes. And like these little house snakes are just perfect little solid black snakes. And there's morphs and stuff for them now. I know Garrett Hartle's working with a lot of different morphs in them, but I preach African house snakes to everybody. Like they're super cool snakes.
yeah, I'll have to check them out for sure. I'll wait till I get a little bit further along in the hognose stuff. There's some other things I want to get to, but I'm like, all right, I don't want to take on too much all at once. Like I got the ball pythons going. I'm just getting the hognose going, and then once I'm, you know, secure with both of them, then I could bring on something else. I got my one pet, my beaded lizard. So right now I'm kind of like, I'm right at a happy spot. You know what I mean? It's like not too much, but it's enough. And yeah, I'm not bored, you know.
How many clutches are you expecting this year?
Well, the move did kind of like throw everything out of sync, but I came home and ultrasounded today. So I got number 4 and 5 are in the incubator. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm waiting on 4 clutches to be laid over the next month or so. And then I got like 8 more females. So I'm thinking somewhere between 15 and 20 this year. Ball python clutches only.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's 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 a lot, man. That's a lot of snakes. You know, even if they just had six eggs a clutch, like you if you had 20, you're looking at 120 new animals. Like that's a lot of snakes. That's more than people realize.
Yeah, and then you throw in the hog noses and stuff too. So there's another couple clutches. I'm seeing if those girls are like double clutching this year or not too. I'm like continuing to pair them. I'm kind of got a couple like hognose mentors because they're a lot different than the ball pythons, man. So, but I guess some of them will double clutch. So I'm waiting to see if a couple of them will double clutch, and I don't know if one of the girls is going to go. So I should have quite a few snakes this year. And when I moved out here, I already convinced myself hey, I might not even barely have a season this year. You know what I mean? Because of a move of that that distance and everything, and then moving twice. But so far so good. And I think it kind of helped. A couple girls that were stalling out in California seemed to have kicked them into gear. So far so good.
Do you do any brumation with your hog nose? Do you brumate them?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out. I'm probably gonna have to do the wine fridge or something here because in California, I lived in the high desert area, so I just put them in the shed, and they would fluctuate between like 40 and 60 degrees was my outside temperatures during that time. So I just put them out in the shed. But here, I think it gets colder here in the winter. So I think it can snow a little bit here, and I don't think I want to take them down that low.
Yeah, definitely. In the area that you're at, like you can definitely get some snow. It's not going to be a lot every year, but it'll probably snow once or twice a year in that area. Um, and that's something else I kind of wanted to touch on and bring up to you is you've kept a good amount of animals in California in that area, and now you're in Tennessee. Have you had to adjust anything from just the atmosphere point from being out in California to being where you are now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was always fighting for humidity out there. Here, man, I mean, I still run my humidifier, but it barely kicks on throughout the day. And that's only because the air conditioning in the house is kind of sucking out some of the humidity. But when we moved into the rental, I really didn't. I don't know. I took my mini split in California for granted, and when I moved into the rental, man, I had to hustle around that first night and go find some oil filled heaters because when the temps dropped, it really dropped, and I was scared for my collection's life that first night. I ain't gonna lie, and then but then once I got them in the house and stable, it was definitely a learning curve though, and then man, the weather here is so prone to it'll be raining and then 2 hours later it'll be sunny and hot. Then it'll go back to raining. But when it's raining, it could be 80 degrees. So I mean, it's just totally different here. And but so far so good. Since I moved in here, I've kind of set this up similar to the one I had in California. I got a mini split going. It's not all the way working yet. That's a whole nother issue to talk about. But yeah, for the most part, everything's self-sufficient right now. So
yeah, and one of the reasons I was bringing that up is I've visited people out on the West Coast. I've been out to Cusco's place, and I've been to places out on the East Coast, and it's funny when I hear people talking about the different types of cocoa that they're using and everything because they're trying to get humidity in their in their tubs and all that stuff. And to me, it's man, I had to stop using that shit. I have to use paper towels a lot of times because the sides of my tubs will just be dripping. It's too moist, it's too wet in there. because, you know, at any given time in the summertime, I can walk outside and it's 90% humidity outside, you know, and it's just smoldering. Like you feel like you're breathing in soup when you walk outside. And, you know, like you said, it can be 40 degrees at night and then 85 degrees in the afternoon. You know, it's there's a huge variant every day. And like I've just kind of always been accustomed to that because like this is where I've always been. You know, I've always been in this area, or you know, in Louisiana or Texas. And it's just it's always interesting to me when I hear people talk about I just can't get humidity in this thing. I can't get the humidity up, and I'm like, fuck. Well, I need my humidity to go down.
Yeah, man. Like in California, like my ambient humidity outside was like 10% most of the year. You know, I lived out in the desert, so then yeah, it was rough. Then that was complete opposite moving here. So I still use the cocoa blocks, but I don't soak it down as much as I used to, and I kind of just let it air out. And I don't need to spray. Like in California, I had to spray the tubs down with the cocoa in there, you know, at least once, but more than likely twice a week. Like pretty good. Here, I don't really need to do that. You know, just maybe a little bit if they're in shed, but other than that, they're good, man.
Yeah, it's funny. And when we had Antoine, we were talking to Antoine about being in, you know, different climates and different things, and how you set up your incubators and which walls you set your incubators up on from when the sun comes through. And it's just it's always interesting to me to talk to people that have been in multiple different areas, you know, and had large collections or even semi-large collections, to where you know, they actually get to experience the husbandry changes and why it's so important to, you know, to test different shit out and to do different things, and the how care sheets that you print off the internet or get from Petco or whatever. I mean, there's good points and baselines, but you can't just base everything off of that, because there's so much change just in the different places that you're at. And those oil heaters that you're talking about, like I've had to use those before. And if you have those oil heaters, you will suck the humidity out of a room real quick with those things. Like they'll dry a room out. Like you'll have nosebleeds and shit from using them because it's so dry in the house.
Yeah, and it was weird because when we moved to Knoxville, that was March. So the nighttime drop was pretty substantial. But then in the daytime, that room that I had the snakes in was the room that the sun hit all day long. And it was an older house, so it wasn't insulated that well. So then I was having heat spikes in the day. And man, it took me a minute to like get that whole like little miniature ecosystem worked out there. I had to program the air conditioner in the house, the one that was upstairs, to like kick on at 70. I don't know what it was, but I had it like timed and everything. It took me a minute to figure it out, man. So because I wasn't so worried about the like it would get to be like 84 in the room for a few hours, which I wasn't too concerned about that for the ball pythons. But I was trying to incubate my leopard gecko eggs at like in between 80 and 82. Well, I can't do that in an incubator that's in a room that's 84. You know what I mean? Like they don't cool. So I was trying to kick the room temperature back down. And this room, though, that since I've been here, it works out a lot better. It's not the side of the house where the sun's getting all day long, and house is built better. It's a lot more insulated, and it's all this Freedom Breeder racking too. Kind of like it creates its own heat in the room, and it's just kind of like been a stable environment. Not much heating or cooling has to go on in here. Honestly, it's kind of like the perfect amount of heat panels for square footage right now. Once I add something else, it'll throw the whole room off. But for right now, it's kind of like self-maintaining.
And if you can get to that point where it self-maintains, like you've got it in the bag for now. But like you said, as soon as you add something else to it and you got a little bit more heat, it's going to throw it all off. Which I had that issue right here on this wall. You can kind of see a little bit of it right there. That's where I built the indoor-outdoor iguana cage.
Yeah,
and So that in my mind, like this is gonna be the best thing for the iguana, and I'm gonna, make it to where she has this badass enclosure and she can come inside and outside. Well, I actually shut all of the central air and heat off to this room from the
Yeah.
rest of the house. Like I isolated this room from the rest of the house, and then we have it to where it's pretty dialed in to where it keeps the ambient temperature that I want at all times. Well, that window that I built her cage around, like sometimes it gets just a little too hot out there if the window's open, and that falls back into that 100% humidity right here in Arkansas. And man, you've been right here in this line for the past 2 weeks. It's rained every fucking day for a long time. We had a lot of bad storms come through. Like I spent most of last weekend cutting up trees in my mom's yard where trees had fell and everything. But my backyard gets saturated, and then that heat comes out, so it's just even more sticky and more wet. And I'm gonna have to figure out something. Like I want her to still have the ability to go in and out as she pleases, but I'm gonna have to figure out something to kind of regulate that a little better.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like maybe how they do like the lions or something. Like you put in a thing, like I don't know. So like you get them in, and like okay, you're in for now, until the weather chills out or something. Yeah.
Well, we can still close the window. Like I built it. I built the whole thing around the window, so like in the wintertime it stays closed, and she can come in. And like for most part, since we've had this iguana, she's been kind of free roam like a cat. And we had a closet that was hers that I had built levels on to where she could go up, and she had basking spots in there and her food and water and everything. Well, her and the dog, my daughter got a dog, and like she's just way too territorial over everything. And that little dog got popped across the face and went flying across the room from her tail. Like she's a big iguana. She's not like she's in a full adult female. And
Yeah.
like I mean, she literally sent him flying across the room. And uh, so I wound up building her somewhere where we can keep her enclosed when the dog's doing his thing, and then when we put the dog somewhere, she can have her run of the house. And it's funny, man, because I don't know if you've ever messed with iguanas much, and like I don't recommend them to people. I talk about this all the time. Like I don't recommend them to kids. I don't recommend them to beginner reptile people, but they'll change colors depending on like their moods and what they eat and different things. Well, certain colors are when they're showing dominance over other animals or other stuff in the house, or showing their territory, and they'll puff up and stand up broad. And like she can be inside and see the dog walk by the window outside, and she'll stand up and look at him and cock her eye and like, come on, motherfucker. And like any other animal, anything else, like I can get one of the big snakes out, and like she'll walk right by and doesn't even think about it. But that little puppy goes by and she's ready to whoop his ass.
Yeah, that's funny. I did have an iguana. Oh man, it ended up dying though. It was like, man, when they were mass importing them, I was like maybe 21 or something. Yeah, but yeah, I had friends that had them and all that stuff, and they got big, and some of them were mean, and yeah.
They definitely have a mind of their own. Like and this iguana right here, it's funny, you were talking earlier about over the road trucking and everything, and like that's how this iguana was raised. Like she's actually a rescue. Like she was bought by an over the road trucker as a hatchling, and he kept her and built a cage in his sleeper cab and everything, and like she was his road dog and rode around. He took great care of her. He was in an accident. He's quadriplegic, so we took her in. And like she loves, I mean, it was her whole life. So like if she's having rough times, like if she's having a rough shed, or if she just seems down, because like you can read an iguana, like they have a lot of personality, a lot of emotion. I'll put her on my shoulder and we'll go drive around for like an hour. And she loves to ride in the car. It's funny because like she'll see a vehicle that she's interested in, and she'll pop and watch it till it's gone, and then she'll look for the next one. It's she loves riding in the car. And you wouldn't think, of an iguana like, hey, we're gonna have this iguana in the fucking car and drive around with it. She's gonna like it, but she'll be pissy, like she'll thrash and everything until we get her in the car, and then once she realizes she's fixing to drive around, she'll calm down and just sit right there, won't move. Loves it.
That's crazy. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I guess it's just that habituation, like whatever they get habituated to, it becomes comfortable to them.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. That's like you said, I wouldn't. That's not something I would think of. Like, oh yeah, we got to take it for a ride,
Yeah,
with a snake that wouldn't eat, man. I had my wife put it in her purse. We went to Walmart. Like I've done that, but yeah.
Or if you have females or like snakes that won't breed, people talk about taking them on the car ride just to, that change. I don't know, man. She seems to enjoy it. That and swimming. She loves to swim, and I don't know where in the fuck she would have swam in that guy's truck, but like she knows where the bathroom is, and she'll go to the bathtub, climb in the bathtub, and scratch at the faucet until you turn it on, let her swim in it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, she's super smart, but she's definitely Katie's animal. Like she only likes me or my daughter when she wants to like us. Like if she's running around, she'll come to and like hang out and sit with us sometimes. But if we go into her territory and try to take her out, she's pissed. Like Katie's the only one that can go into her area and pick her up and not get thrashed. Like if I try to get her, like I wound up having welts across my back that long from that tail, just popping me in the back.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, she loves Katie. She's looking at me right now like, shut the hell up, or I'm gonna come in there and whip your ass. She's looking at me kind of like she looks at the dog. But man, I want to do the segments that we normally do, the 3 segments. I want to do them with you because I know you're just as much of a music buff about stuff as I am. So I want to throw out to you real quick. What's your band or musician of the week? Like what have you been listening to that you think our listeners should check out?
Madball. I've been on a Madball kick for a couple months actually, but Madball from New York City, they're New York City hardcore. Madball or like Propane. That's some good stuff, man. Madball, the Legacy album, and Propane, Foul Taste of Freedom. Those 2 albums. That would be like my choice for anyone to go listen to.
Hell yeah. Mine for this week is actually Cavalera Conspiracy. And it's funny because I hadn't listened to anything that Max Cavalera had done in a long time. And when I went up to Nerd, Kevin McCurley was listening to Cavalera Conspiracy, and he was like, no, you got to listen to Blunt Trauma. You got to listen to this. And I was like, fuck, man, I hadn't heard that stuff in forever. And like I was just going through random music this past week, and like I wound up listening to that Blunt Trauma album again. And man, that's just heavy, man. Like I love everything that Max has ever done, like from Sepultura to Soulfly to the Cavalera Conspiracy, and like he's supposed to be doing something new right now with his son. I'm not sure if it's came out yet, but I always love everything that Max is doing.
Yeah, that's definitely cool stuff, man. Yeah, I have fond memories of Sepultura and stuff. Cavalera Conspiracy, I've seen Soulfly a couple times too. I mean, it's all great. Max is badass.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine from here that he wound up at one point. He was the lead guitarist for Bleed the Sky. I don't know if you ever heard Bleed the Sky, but they went on tour with Soulfly, and he was talking about how Hizzo playing guitar, Mark Hizzo. He was like, you don't realize how good he really is. Like he'll go from playing Soulfly's music to just sitting for hours playing flamenco on an acoustic guitar, just ripping. And
Yeah.
I always liked Soulfly. I never got to see him. Never got to see him live though.
They're good. They're definitely real good live.
I'm gonna change one of our change from reptile of the week because we've actually spent a lot of time talking about reptiles this week. I'm gonna change it to what is the best live show that Shane Kelley's ever been to.
Man, that's such a loaded, hard question. I would definitely say Guns N' Roses, 2016 at the T-Mobile Arena. Alice in Chains opened up for him, obviously not with Lane, but, the newer version, Alice in Chains. And that was like, I mean, just seeing Axl with Duff and Slash again, that's like such a sentimental thing to me. Like, I mean, and my wife had us I mean, we were right up on the rail. Like, I was like right there. My pictures were like every bit as good as like anyone else's pictures like that were on the internet after that. So yeah, that's when I got my Guns N' Roses tattoo. So that's probably like the best single show I've been to. But I've been to a lot of good festivals that the festivals were great too. But if I had to narrow it down to one concert, I would say it's the Guns N' Roses Not in Your Lifetime tour. Yeah.
Did you get to see Guns in the original time, like before they broke up and did all that stuff? Like you never got to see them?
No, I didn't get to see him. My wife did. She's seen him open up for the Rolling Stones way back in the day. So she's seen him do that. And then me and her seen him when it was just Axl, when he had DJ Ashba and all the, Bumblefoot and everything playing for him.
Like the Chinese Democracy era?
Yeah, when they had the residency in Vegas, we went and seen that. And that was really good. And I mean, a lot of people trash talk that, but Axl sang his ass off for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Like, to the point, like, where musicians and guitar players were changing out, and Axl was still singing, man. So, like, anyone could talk all the crap they want about that guy, but, I mean, he's got it, man. I mean, that dude can fucking sing, dude.
I've always said, and this is a conversation that me and Brian Cusco have had a few times, and, like, I have this conversation with a lot of people that are, really into music. I asked the question, who's the greatest or even the top 5 greatest frontmen of all time? And you have to put Axl Rose into that conversation. Like, you have to. He may at one point have been a prima donna and a dick and everything, but that's part of why he was who he was. Like, he controlled crowds. And like his voice is ridiculous. And I've heard him talk about how he wishes he wouldn't have recorded You Could Be Mine the way that he did. He said that song's fucking impossible to sing note for note live. Yeah. And yet, he does it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I've seen Axl 3 times at this point, because I've seen him twice on the Not in Your Lifetime tour. I did the first, it was actually the second show of the whole reunion tour in Vegas, and then I went and seen him again at the Dodger Stadium. And the Cult opened up for him that time, which I'm a big fan of the Cult too. So
yeah, the Cult's awesome. Like, I love, She Sells Sanctuary and all that stuff. Like, that's my shit, man. Like, I grew up listening to all that stuff. Like, there's so much nostalgia to, 80s and early 90s rock to me, because like there's pictures of me when I was a tiny little kid, like 2 years old, and I have big ass headphones on, listening to music that most people, wouldn't have a 2-year-old listening to. Like, there's pictures of me when I'm like 5 or 6 years old, with Poison t-shirts on and my mullet and, pointing at Poison posters. Man, I love that shit, man. I actually, one of the few ass whippings my grandma ever gave me, my mom had me when she was 15. So like I grew, and she's the oldest out of all of her siblings. So I grew up with my aunts and uncles, like brothers and sisters. And my aunt, she had one of those light up 80s telephones. And I got in trouble for putting my rattlesnake skin boots on and kicking the shit out of her phone because Axl Rose did it in the Patience video. And I thought it was cool as hell. And yeah, my grandma whooped my ass for that. So.
Yeah, I love all that music too. I mean, yeah, that's a big part of who I am. That's like a religion to me. I mean, that whole deal. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And like my daughter, you mentioned Alice in Chains. Like Lainey is named Lainey because of Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. Like, I have a CFH tattooed on the side of my head for Pantera. Like, it's music's always been such a big deal to me. Like it's been, it's cathartic, but it just means so much. Like it's definitely shaped who I am, and I have a super eclectic, taste in music. Like I love heavy, like extreme metal, but I also love like my guilty pleasure is like early 90s R&B. Like I love like Jodeci and Keith Sweat and shit like that you never would expect me to listen to. But it's just music just does a lot for me. Like it's very therapeutic. And so the last question is your movie or TV show that and it could be something old, it could be something, it can be anything. A movie or TV show that our listeners should check out.
The Nevers on HBO Max. Man, that's a good show. Like to me, it's like right up. I'm into like kind of sci-fi stuff, but it's like it's up there with like Lost or Penny Dreadful or something. It's kind of like this weird. I don't know, man. Check it out. It's called The Nevers on HBO Max.
It's funny that you say that because we just finished the last episodes of Mayor of Easttown and on HBO Max, and like we were talking about starting something else, and I passed the Nevers, and I was like, I don't know, maybe, and we didn't watch it, and so now I think that's going to be the next thing that we start.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think there's only like 6 or 8 for the first season, so the first season's already done. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really good. I'd recommend it.
So my movie of the week this week is actually something that I'm gonna tell people to stay away from instead of shout it out. So I watched The Turning yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the kid from Stranger Things in it, the boy that plays Mike. It's got him in it, and it's a quasi horror movie. And the trailer makes it look like it's badass. Like the trailer makes it look awesome. And like the premise of the story, everybody's seen this premise 1,000 times. A rich, affluent family hires a nanny to come in the house after the parents die and take care of the kids and blah blah blah. But that shit's whack. Don't watch it. Like it's terrible. Fuck that movie. If the people who made that movie happen to somewhere through the ether hear this, fuck you and your shitty movie.
All right, so stay away from The Turning. All right, well noted.
Yeah, like if I would have paid for that, I'd have kicked somebody's ass to get my money back. It's almost like the Logan Paul Mayweather fight. Like I streamed that illegally. Yeah. Antoine said it. I streamed it illegally and still want my money back. But no, man, I don't want to keep you from your family. I know that you and I had talked about keeping this right at the hour mark because you had just got home, and I fully respect that. And again, man, I appreciate it so much because I got you on short notice, and it means everything. You're definitely one of the people that I look up to a lot and have a lot of respect for, because I personally watched, how your hard work and your effort put you to where you're at. And, there's nothing that means more to me in anything, like outside of reptiles, outside of all that, is somebody that can make everything for themselves. And that's what you did, man. And it just strictly from busting your ass. And I have so much respect for that. And it means so much that you came on here. I can't say, you know, how inspiring it is to see somebody start at a certain point and then just push themselves above, other people that have been doing something way longer than them and, has more experience, but just by hard work. Like that's badass, man. And I appreciate the hell out of that.
I appreciate all the kind words, Bradley. I seriously do. It means a lot to me, brother. Thank you. Thank you. And I was happy to be on. And man, once schedules start looking better and everything, man, I'm more than happy to jump back on. And when Zach's available, when he'll grace us with his presence and everything too, so.
Yeah, I guess he's too much of a celebrity to be on his own show the past 2 weeks. So.
Yeah. I mean, he's out living the good life at reptile shows and stuff,
But yeah, man, I definitely hope that we can have you come back on and do this again. It'll be cool to see what all happens with this season for you. See what goes on with all the hognose and see what goes on with your ball pythons and all that stuff. And really just to hang out and bullshit with you, man, because I think you and I are into a lot of the same stuff, and like it's always I've always loved seeing your posts because you got some kind of cool music playing behind it, and just the seeing Shane Kelley in the comments somewhere, you're gonna get some horns thrown up, and I love that shit, man. And yeah, definitely as close as we are, one weekend or something, if I'm off work and you're off work, like I don't mind traveling a few hours, come up there and hang out, kick it with you. And we got to make it happen. We're just too close now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Shane, man.
We have each other's phone numbers now too. So
yeah, definitely. So if you ever need anything in the area, like Tennessee's not too far from me. Like it's definitely just a few hour drive. If you ever need help with anything or have any issues with anything, just holler at me, man. If there's anything I can do for you, I definitely will. Again, thank you for coming on. You have anything else you want to say to the audience?
No, man. Hey, thanks for everyone that was here and asking questions and all that stuff. And thanks, Bradley, for asking me to be on, man. It was an honor that you guys thought of me, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you, guys.
All right, everybody. So next week, Zach should be back, and we have Chris Eaton coming on next week. So it'll be connected by fat men. So you guys definitely tune in for that one. As always, I love every one of you that feels like you're connected by creatures. See you next time, guys. Later.